What is going on? Welcome to the podcast. Welcome back to JavaScript Lifestyles. Welcome my special guest, my partner in crime, who somehow has the patience to deal with me. Please welcome Jesse Medrano.
Hello, hello, hello.
What's up, man?
Look it, sir. How are you?
It's been a day, man. It's been a day.
I feel you there.
So just real quick, huge shout out to everybody who's been liking, following, subscribing, and generally supporting the show. As you might imagine, since I announced the new company with Jesse, it has been nuts. And of course, there's always 1,000 things to go along with it, but that's a good thing. It keeps me busy. As we progress in the podcast, you will hear more details. You will see live projects when we're done with them. But today is not that day. Today, we're hitting another critical topic that people need to hear and understand. Today is freelancing day. So let's take a moment to actually introduce Jesse. Obviously, there was the quick one. Jesse was a classmate of mine over at Lambda School. One of the few who's actually finishing it within the next month. He's already moved on, created projects for a number of people, ranging from an election website for a potential school board member, as well as working on a next generation CRM project, and has been involved in an application called Simply that was a communication platform. If you're interested, feel free to hop on my Medium blog, find his name. I did a whole profile on him, and good reason. Jesse is driven, skilled developer that comes from similar origins as myself, evolving from a salesperson or a sales manager into a software engineer.
You're too kind.
Oh, that's a lot to say, man. This
Quite a
whole
bit of resume.
this whole like pseudo live thing where we're actually recording videos is a bit different. Usually I just yell into the mic and hope people listen.
I'm listening.
All right. So Jesse, did I miss anything? Is there anything that you'd like to add to my diatribe?
I mean, not really. You pretty much nailed it all. I mean, I do come from the sales background. I started in wireless, and then from wireless, I became a manager in wireless. And with sales, you learn to like money. So once I saw the money in insurance, yeah, I went to insurance. So that's what I'm doing right now. With an exception of all the software development stuff, it's more of just my dream, my passion, and it kind of what keeps me up at night in a good way.
Up at night. What inspires you, my man? Why do you show up for work when there's lines of code to be done?
Well, are we talking about work like my day job, or are we talking about like 12 o'clock at night?
Back cave.
So my back cave, honestly, I just love being able to create something. I think from little age origins, it was intriguing to just kind of take apart things and see how they work, and then it evolved into this computer side. It's pretty much anything everybody does, from 2-year-olds watching, the laptop just to stay entertained, to now we use it for everything. So for myself, when it comes to the software development side, I mean, I started doing some of it for my sales stuff, and I thought, you know what, I could take this somewhere. I can help somebody with this. And that's kind of where my craft came, and that's kind of why I joined Lambda too. I wanted to become a professional, but I was working most of the time, so I didn't have time to be researching a whole lot. So,
right. Mm-hmm. So, what's a freelancer? That's what we're here to talk about today. Freelance web developers are self-employed professional coders who create websites for several clients, get paid for each project. Because they don't work for an employer, they get to set their own price, choose which clients they work for, and work on as few or as many projects as they want. That is the definition from studywebdevelopment.com. I definitely have linked that in the show notes as always. Make sure you take a peek. I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, the good, the bad, the ugly.
It's pretty close. I mean, when we think about freelancing in general, we're thinking of just your standard 1099 contractor that goes, anywhere. Are you looking for work? I can do it for you. And he's not tied to any head honcho. He's not paying his dues to them except for, Uncle Sam. Um, on the web development side, it gets interesting because you have so many levels of freelancing. You can freelance off of a service website like Fiverr. That's almost similar to Angie's
Man,
List.
we have a whole list of those to go through, I
There,
promise.
yeah, but then my definition of actual freelancing is, hitting up your local businesses, telling them what you do, hitting up, um, anybody, your friends, your family. To me, that's the freelancing side because when you're on a website like Fiverr or any other one of these, you're pretty much just a job listing there, but you still have to apply
Right,
to these jobs, So in a sense, it's almost like Indeed contracts.
right.
And that's the disconnect when it comes to freelancing to me. So I prefer going, if not the face-to-face route, because COVID is a thing right now. Uh, I definitely love having the conversation with people, seeing where their business needs are, and actually being able to provide myself as a service rather than, hey, you said you needed a WordPress website. I'll charge you $5.99, and if you give me like a 5-star rating.
Right. There's a lot of that. And I think that one of the things that I want to hit on before we keep going is realistically, people need to understand that you have a positive and a negative for every kind of job that you do and every way that you do it.
Mhm.
Freelancing is legit because you can sit in a Starbucks when COVID isn't a thing, and you can hammer away at your keyboard for 12 hours a day, as long as they don't kick you out. Make sure you buy lots of coffee. Um, and you get to be where you want to be. You get to be comfortable. You can be sitting on a couch. You can be sitting on a beach. But the problem is that generally you have to, at least in the beginning, really push to try and get those initial clients, to try and get good ratings, to try and have good word of mouth so you can actually do that. Um, so let's talk about skills. So I grabbed a whole list of different skills that thenextweb.com said would be the 7 fundamental freelancing tips for developers. I snagged those again to the show notes. Make sure you read it. And let's take a look at it. And just to make it easy, I'm gonna diatribe for a minute, and then I'm gonna let Jesse come in and kind of hammer my points. Number one on the list is focus on your skill set. And I think that there is vastly good reason why this is number one on this list. If you do not have the skills to do the job, you're not going to be able to do that job. So one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to misrepresent yourself, get the job, and not be able to complete it, or you're going to have the skill set to do the job. You do the job. Hopefully you do well, at which point you're going to get, good feedback, good reviews, what have you. I would say for a web developer, if you're going to be doing front end stuff, make sure that you hit JavaScript, HTML, CSS, make sure that you're paying attention to accessibility, make sure you're paying attention to cross-site security, make sure that you're paying attention to performance, get your front end framework, whether it's, Angular, React, Vue, Svelte. I just love that name. I had to.
Actually wanted to chime in on that. So,
Yo.
so that's a very general statement, being good at your craft.
Mhm.
Because on one aspect, yeah, you want to be a professional at what you're doing, but there is those times when you do get the client that says, I want, the web page to do a backflip when the client goes on, and that may not be something that you know how to do. Uh, Generally, as a software developer, we're not just coders, we're problem solvers. So if you don't know how to do something, being able to learn how to do it quickly is just as important. Um, and it's good to be honest with your clients when it comes to freelancing. Um, I know I've done that, hey, uh, this is the easy route, this is the long route. It does take some research and learning, but um, definitely be forward when it comes to, being a master of your craft. Do put in the hours, because at the end of the day, if you're just going to deliver a static HTML with no CSS or sort of stylings, you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. But, I just have to chime in there.
Right. And I mean, I think the other piece of it too is that having good hard skills or the actual skills to do the job for freelancing, there's two sides of it. You have your hard skills, which is going to be your programming, understanding programming languages, making sure you're able to and comfortable doing the programming side of it. But the other side of it is just as important. Can you talk to people? Can you sell to people? Can you answer your phone? Can you answer a text? Can you write a clear and concise email? Can you do wireframing while you're sitting on the phone with somebody and actually give them something to look at while you're having a conversation? I mean, the soft skills, honestly, for a freelancer are going to be just as important as the hard skills, because if you can't nail the soft skills, you're not going to be able to even touch the hard skill stuff.
Exactly. You can arguably say that freelancing is 80% sales and 20% actually working.
Right.
All the admin stuff, like as long as you stay organized, that's easy. I personally use Bonsai. It's my favorite for managing, contracts, proposals, you name it. But when it comes to actually being able to talk to people, forget the pricing and not knowing how to market yourself. That takes time, But when it comes to getting the deal, if you can't sell one yourself, and then you can't sell your skill set, I don't think you can call yourself a freelancer at that point, because you're just not going to have any work.
Right. So the second one, and this one is going to be a little elusive for some people, but this ties into search engine optimization, and this ties into more the marketing side of things. And that is, you need to find low competition but profitable keywords. So basically what that's saying is, for example, there's a billion of us JavaScript developers across the world. There really are. But there's only a certain percentage that are, for example, comfortable dealing with TypeScript, comfortable dealing with, CMS. There's comfortable dealing with combining a headless CMS with the front end. Make sure that when you're doing stuff, make sure to list all your skills realistically in your descriptions. That way you are nailing every single keyword you can, so that maybe you can accidentally hit these low competition. And generally just look it up and see what's trending and try to go against the grain a little bit and find the stuff that's going to have more of a market to kind of land on, so you can actually work without as much competition so that you can make money.
On the SEO side, that's a little bit of an arguable statement, because occasionally you will have a project from a client that's not exactly for customer facing features, such as an admin dashboard. That's actually something you don't want being seen by Google searches. You don't want somebody to accidentally go into my website /admin.
So just to clarify there, that's actually them promoting themselves, not their customers. Just to clarify that. You are 100% dead on though.
Yes. But SEO is important in anything. I think if you're going to work as a freelancer, you're not necessarily working by yourself. You can work with a team. You can hire team members for you. You can hire people on Fiverr. You could be just the organizer of it. In a sense, it's like wholesaling for web developers in a sense. But if you're going to market those skills, make sure you can at least back it up with some sort of proof that you can somewhat do the job.
Right.
So whether it's SEO, maybe show that you know how to run an audit. Make sure you know how to grade SEO. Do you know what are like some of the top things that affect SEO and accessibility? Do you know what Google Lighthouse is, basically?
Among other tools.
Among other tools, and I should just say Google Lighthouse because that's like one of the main ones that Google uses itself. I'm pretty sure there's other algorithms out there, but
And it's free.
yeah,
It's
it's free.
free.
Yeah, but that's just on the SEO side of things. When we talk about actual skills and things to know, that's just like a piece of the puzzle, because obviously if you can't get your front page to load, you're in a different set of problems. So being resourceful is probably the top of my list when it comes to anything that's not sales and communication related. Um, Occasionally you will have a client that needs something that you haven't heard about. Or if you haven't messed with a CMS, but you don't want to do WordPress.com and just build something, you actually want to build it out, you got to learn how to find the right documentation in the quickest way, but at the same time still being efficient.
So we mentioned it earlier with Fiverr, but let's talk about some of the landing places that a brand new freelancer can go to try and find work. And I say try because I have to be honest. I haven't put a huge amount of effort into these, but I don't know if I'm going to be honest. It's not really my bag. You know, coming from a sales background, I'd rather just, put my feet to the pavement and go find something. But let's take a look at them. So this is like
I
17 of
think
them or something.
I think before we get into like a list of different sites, it's fair to mention the areas in which business owners and project owners are in. You
Mhm.
have the few that have a fantastic website, they have a fantastic application. They are more or less in an area where they're not in need. They could have a consultation on what they have and what they're trying to do going forward, but that's pretty much that bubble. Then you have a pretty large majority of customers that are either having a site that needs a lot of work, but they don't know it. So those are the people that are very confident in their WordPress.com skills, their Shopify.com skills that kind of do it themselves. And I mean, I, I, there's something to be said about honest work and being proud of your work, but at the same time, it's like bar rescue. If you won't admit that your bar is going downhill from your mistakes, you got to do something about it.
So, and let me quickly interject my favorite story on that. So, in 2018, I took over as the administrator for a WordPress for an Oregon Dealer Association. And I've got to tell you that mad respect for the people that set it up, but dear Lord, please, for the love of God, do not stack 3 WordPresses on top of each other, cross-link them, and turn it into a freaking petting zoo, because that's basically what this was. It took me a month and a half to literally go through 15 years of crap and then finally get to the point where I just threw my hands up, tried to back it up, and went, you know what? It's time to start fresh. And 3 months later, there was a brand new, pretty WordPress. It's prettiest word some of these WordPresses get. And for the most part, since we did that, that site is functional as long as, individuals
Plugins
that
don't get messed up.
don't poke at things in the back end the way they're not supposed to.
That,
Haven't had that problem in a while. But yeah, I mean, definitely that's definitely the case. Most of the work that you're going to find online are going to be from folks that either know what the hell they're talking about and just don't have the time, or they have something and just want to make it better, or they have a team that does it and they need more people just to back that team up.
yeah.
But there's 1,000 different people out there in 1,000 different cities, all over the world that have a website for the business or for their hobby or what have you. They don't have a clue that they can get sued for accessibility issues. They don't have a clue that color contrast is that drastic of a piece of that. They
Well,
don't
they don't know
understand.
that customers can't reach them.
Right. Right. They don't know that their form is broken because they put it up and never looked again. So, I mean, you're going to see more, in my opinion, you're going to see more knowledgeable people on these boards than you are knocking on somebody's door. I think that, it's going to be, you're also going to have less control of the project because they're going to know what they want and have some idea how to accomplish it.
Well, not only that, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, you and I both live in like the West Coast.
Right.
And I mean, anybody in the United States can say this, our competition versus, some of the cats in like other countries such as India, any other, I point out India because that's where a multitude of developers are coming from right now. It's becoming a hotspot. But India, the Philippines, anywhere that's almost remotely getting into like this third world country state, they're starting to get internet and they're starting to become developers, and they're willing to do the work for pennies on the dollar. And you're going to get beat by these people because they're advertising that they can give you a 5-star WordPress website. But you as a freelancer in the United States need to eat, need to pay bills, and you're charging $100 for a page, you know? And yeah, you may have a 5-star review here or there, but at the end of the day, like if you're looking for a lot of contracts, you're gonna get beat out by these undercut developers where
Right.
they're for the dollar, they get a lot.
Well, let's start talking about this list, because the number one on the list is actually a company that does screenings on their people, or on the people that they have freelancing. And to a degree, that screening tends to kind of level the playing field a little bit as far as pay. But
Yeah.
the company itself is actually going to take more money, and that is Top Tall. They hire the top end of freelancers, which means that there's a lot of those that come out of boot camps and other places that they're not going to have a seat at that table. They've got a tough screening process that ensures that you're going to get quality applicants, but it's one of those where, because of that, you're going to be a lot more limited on how many are there.
Yeah, they're very picky on who they let in.
I mean, hell, I've applied there a few times. I'm not that good, apparently.
Yeah.
But let's keep going. The next one up is Upwork. I looked at that one pretty hard. I have family that use that to get IT security jobs and loved it. There's a ton of bids, and I mean, the problem is that this article that I'm going to share in the show notes, it really does look at things from a business perspective. So understand that the reverse of this is actually true for the developer themselves. So the pros for Upwork: high amounts of bids can reduce cost of labor, secure and easy online payment system, network 1,000 developers ready to work. The cons, and again, this is where it really hurts us: high amounts of bid can result in price fixation, leading to lack of quality. So what's going to happen is the cheapest guy is going to get it, and that guy may suck, or they hire a few people and they get crap people that can't work with the team. That's why they're freelancing, just because they don't work well with others.
Here's a hard part to swallow. Because of sites like Upwork, Fiverr, Dice, several others, this is what's really commoditizing the software development sector, where you have senior engineers working for $110,000 plus. You have junior devs working at 60 to 80 plus. And with the work being so low, some companies are willing to pay $15 an hour, the same wage that somebody at McDonald's gets for flipping a burger.
Well, it's crazy. You mentioned that we're both on the West Coast. I saw a job ad not too long ago, actually, from Oregon, that was $15 an hour, cranking code. And it was React, it was Node, it was full stack, GraphQL, TypeScript, Python stuff added to it. And you're
2 to 5 years of experience, and you're going to
7.
be also on the marketing team, and you're going to be the janitor at the same time. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I definitely appreciate the hustle from businesses, but I can honestly tell you that any business that I run, my people are going to be paid fairly, and they're going to be treated right. They're going to have 2 days off a week at minimum. 40 hours a week is the cap. And by God, hopefully you get your work done, because even if you want to be here, I don't want you in the door. Go home.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to love the idea of the 4-day work week. I mean,
hell yeah, man. 40 hours a week, implement. 4 days, baby.
I mean, there's some psychology to that. Wow. Some psychology to that, because you only have 4 days to get your work done.
Right.
So you're actually more productive. So.
Right. Oh no, for sure. So let's keep going here. Otherwise we're going to be here for an hour or more. I'm going to warn you now at this point. This is going to be a long one. Get over it. You'll love it. That's the first YouTube first episode. So suck it up, Cupcake. All right. So the next one, sorry, I had to.
Cupcake.
The next one is Guru. Same deal. And I'm just going to name them off. We know these. If you look at them, if you look at the show notes, grab this. It has the whole list. It gives you pros and cons. But Guru, Freelance, Fiverr, Upstack, Craigslist,
That
people per
Craigslist
hour.
one gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Right. GitHub Jobs, Gigster, Dice, and Authentic Jobs. So I'm going to be real. I'm going to be straight up.
Dice is like putting your phone number in like a janky bar bathroom. I have put one application on there and I cannot stop getting calls from like the randomest countries for like W2 jobs,
Right.
But
so and I want to be clear, like I'm not bashing anybody who's hustling on these markets. I'm not
no.
bashing the marketplace.
People get jobs
themselves.
all the time on here.
First of all, there's a different breed of people that like are going to enjoy this. Like I have a couple of people that I've talked to that are just like, yeah, this is fun to me.
Some people are hustling on these things. Some people, that's their bread and butter. So I totally
some people are making $300,000 on these sites. Like, if you've got that want and that drive and you want to be there, more power to you. I don't want to be there.
On the Upwork sites and the Fiverr, if you do have the reviews, then you are more competitive. So the game plan for some people is, you do a bunch of like very, very cheap gigs. That would be a lot of work, expecting them to leave a fair review, and you kind of give them the expectation, the only reason why I'm doing this so cheap is because I could use the promotion. So if you could please give an honest review at the end, that's a fair tactic that a lot of people do.
Right. So, and that's that one. Let's talk about setting price. And this is a hard thing to consider, right? So as a freelancer, you have to set a price for your work. And with the marketplaces, it's hard. You're not going to, that's a whole different animal. And we're going to leave that one on the shelf as we keep moving. Now we're talking about, actually from your office where you work from, finding clients and actually pricing things. It's something that any and all developers are going to struggle with. And in my opinion, you got to figure out what you think you're worth and aim for that. You should be careful to keep your experience in mind. You need to keep your market in mind, but your hourly should be what you think you're worth. I'll give you an equation to work with. Okay. If I was working with a partner alone, I could use this. And part of this is to keep a business floating, but it's also a good way to always ensure that you have fallback cash just in case you have a month where you walk home with a goose egg, right? If you have a month where you literally can't land anything and it's just a rough month, it's going to happen, but you need to have something there. And that is, what you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to get jobs. You're going to, put a third of that for you. And you're going to either put 2/3 into the bank, or you're going to set up another savings account with the other third and use that to keep your equipment up to date, make sure that you're paying your bills with it. But the long story short, even if you're getting $100 a month, you're putting things aside in different places to make sure the bills are covered, to keep the lights on, making sure that you're able to pay yourself something in the future if you need to. But, there's also the other side of it, that if you just want to take 2/3 and you're making enough, you can do that. If it's you alone, take 2/3. But
what a lot of people forget too is Uncle Sam needs their cut. And just because I know my FBI agent is probably going to listen to this after, if you don't plan for taxes to be cut out of a 1099, because that's what freelancing is kind of in that sector, you're not working for anybody, you're working for yourself.
Right.
You do have taxes on any income that you make, and you have to report it according to your state. And every state is different on their 1099 percentages. So it's always wise, if not that third, save 50%, see what your tax person does. And worst case scenario at 50%, I don't think it's more than 50%. I think it's actually a lot less than that. Exactly. But I would not be mad at like having, like, if not a tax return, because 2020 was a big year for loss for people, like One of my first contracts, I basically used my income under the quote business to upgrade computers at home so that I could do better, so that was a business expense. And because I lost more money than I made, you know, hopefully there's a tax credit there. So
Right. There's
um,
also there's also a percentage with taxes that you're able to ignore. Honestly, best advice that anybody can give you, because I sure as hell am not a CNA or a CPA rather. Hire a CPA, hire an accountant, have them do
and
your
keep your
taxes.
receipts. Hire
Yeah,
a CPA and
all
keep
of
your
them,
receipts.
all of them.
hmm
So, I mean, do you have any thoughts on that outside of what I said, Jesse? I mean, do you think any differently on pricing there?
So beyond pricing fairly, there's two things about it, right? Because yeah, if you're doing the Fiverr stuff, you know, there are some people that have Fiverr as an outlet for income and they're willing to charge less there because it's so competitive. But when you're doing your own work and stuff, um, you got to know your worth, especially if it's not your day job, if it's something that you're doing on the side. Um, Take some time to think, how much are you willing to work hourly or how much are you willing to work for a project? Don't just give an ambiguous number like, oh, I'm willing to charge you, 1,500. You got to be able to justify it, because if you can't, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. If the
Right.
customer asks why is it 1,500, and we're like, I don't know, I just came up with the price. It sounds good to me. You know. So I mean, the approach that I take is, look at the work, look at the time frame that it would quote it out. It's going to take me about 2 weeks to do a wireframe, a SketchUp, or if there's already a design in place, just maybe take me less. And really, like, you should be tracking your time when you're working, because a customer can come back and say you didn't put in your due diligence. That's one thing about protecting yourself. Always track your time. So if it takes you, 5 hours to do the design, and that's how much it takes you on average to do every design, figure how much would it cost to either hire somebody to do it versus how much time it costs you to do it. You know, uh,
Right.
that's one approach. Uh, and then so on for the rest. If you're putting money in for booklets, USBs, databases, if you're charging for hosting, all these things you're going to want to include in your pricing. I personally don't do it. I let the customer pay for that stuff, because last thing I want is their site to go down because I accidentally let my card expire, I changed the bank or whatever. I don't want them to get mad at me for that. But you have to factor everything in, because if not, one, you're shooting yourself in the foot by looking bad in front of the customer, not knowing what your worth is, and two, you could really get either undercharged for what you're actually serving. So
One,
that's,
and you're gonna run into that the first few. The first
yeah,
few gigs you do, you're gonna get screwed one way or the other.
yeah.
Take that as learning. Build
It,
up an understanding of how to better maximize your time and
yeah.
value it.
And I will say, on your first project, I'm not saying do it, but it is okay if you get undervalued, because at the end of the day, you're getting portfolio projects. That really helps when coming to like showing your worth. If you say, you're going to charge $5,000, they're going to be like, why is it $5,000? And you don't have a portfolio to show them why it's $5,000. You're kind of just showing, you're at that point the customer's gambling, you
Right.
know. And put your mindset of the business, especially if you go knocking on doors. You're going to be like, hey, I'd love to build you a website. And they're going to be like, oh, great. What do you have in mind? I don't know. You got $5,000? I'll do it for you. That's what that conversation is going to sound like to them. Whereas if you be like, hey, here's some templates, here's some layouts, here is my work that I've done for other people. This is my usual charge. It would take me about 6 weeks to do it. It's going to quote roughly around $5,000. Do we have a deal? That conversation sounds so different.
Right. So let's move on. So the next one is where to find customers. And this is one that you're going to hear arguments for, against, up one way and down the other. Okay. Personally, I agree with this mindset. Search for potential clients on social media. Now, before we even dive into this, social media is hard. It really is, because anything you say could explode into horrible, horrible things. Or it could be a really, really good experience. To make sure that you have a presence and that presence is positive. Personally, I would focus on community groups in your direct community or nearby communities. You know, Part of that comes from the fact that I, again, am old school. I like to do person to person selling. I like to either know of or know the people that I'm working for if I can. But the other side of that is that it's nice to have your word of mouth in your community, because it spikes that initial word of mouth up because people already know you. So if you know what you're doing, you're talking to people the right way, you're not a scumbag in the town that you're in, that's going to be a benefit for you. If you've had issues in the town you live in, move to the next town. Go talk to them. But it also lets you put a face to the name, so you can actually have a conversation with the person that you want to talk to. If you know somebody's an owner when you walking in the door, it means you don't have to ask that stupid question of, can I talk to an owner, please? Because let me tell you, there's a lot of owners, and I know a lot of owners, different things. They're going to look you dead in the face and bald face lie and just go, I'm sorry, they're not here today. They're in a meeting, they're on a phone call, they're in
The owner
Hawaii
told
on
you that.
vacation. Like,
The owner's looking you dead in the face saying he's not here.
right, 100%.
You're Jehovah Witness knocking on doors like that.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that you're, if you can get a rapport before you even walk in the door, it's going to be a better thing. And part of that is going to be, having a conversation online before you even walk through the door, right?
There's a lot of way to go around the social media marketing. I have a different perspective on it when it comes to social media. It's almost like real estate. You have those guys that are just like, hey, want to buy a house? You should buy a house.
Mhm.
Oh, you only have $20 in bank? You should still buy a house. You have those guys, and then you have the people like I really take a lot from Gary Vee, just because he's been very helpful in the social media industry, kind of like giving a lot of content, and I love his perspective on jab jab hook, where basically you're given value, whether it's like social media posts like, hey, I was working on this client and we found, this statistic, that if you did this differently on your website, it really goes a long way. Or by saying, hey, here's a layout that works very well for this ecosystem, and then one day someone's going to be like, oh, hey, you design websites. I'm starting a record label. I'm a rapper. I'd love to have a website to like show my brand, that could turn into something just because at that point you're the website guy,
Mhm.
and it sounds so different than like, hey, I need to build you a website because I need to make money. So there's different perspectives on it, and everyone has like, it's almost like the difference between cold calling and somebody kind of like reaching out to you. Not that cold calling is bad, because there's so many industries that thrive from it, but you know, e- everyone has different notions of it. Especially if you're getting calls like on the insurance side, you're just like, I already have insurance, bro. Get off my line. It's, you can relate it to any industry, and if you're doing the same thing with your social media friends, pretty soon your social media friends is gonna drop really quick.
Oh yeah.
And that's sad, because half of the social media friends that we have are all like fake lies. Like when someone says I have 3,000 Facebook friends, I guarantee you do not interact daily with every single Facebook friend. And if you do, you're
More
talented.
power to you.
Yeah, if you do, you're talented. You, my good sir, are a man of like many faces and many words. But the last thing you want to do is burn all your bridges. You want people to feel invited to talk to you, um, and that it's not a sales interaction time you talk to them.
Not overwhelmed, right? So
Exactly.
let's move into the next one. And this is honestly, I think this is just as important as having your skills, right? And that is, when you do work, when you find the work, you know, and this, for the love of God, this should be obvious, but pay attention. Okay. You should always go above and beyond what your customers want. Go as fast as you can without making mistakes and make it pixel perfect to what they want. Always provide high quality results. And if you're under time, go slightly farther than you need to. Obviously, you want to say something if you're going to tweak things, but talk to your client. Do they want it ahead of schedule, or do they want you to spend another hour and a half fine tuning one specific thing? But if you're always consistently putting out high quality work, you're not going to be looking for work. Work is going to walk through your door most of the time, because people are going to look at what you've made. They're going to look at your track record and they're going to go, whoa, this guy knows his stuff. Be that guy, right?
The key word comes from sales, and it's meet and exceed goals.
Meet and exceed expectations, for sure.
Exactly. If you can't do that, I mean, maybe you just meet the goal, but that's going to be what sets you apart from like every other developer on Fiverr,
Right.
And the one big thing that most high-end freelancers work off of is word of mouth. One business did very well, they succeeded, they're going to tell their friends and their family. And if you do that, then you can take your time away from having to go market prospect yourself and just working about cranking code, running your business.
Right.
That's one less job that you have to do.
And it leads into our next one, which is just as important. Manage time efficiently. Time management is a huge thing for every single profession. But for developers, specifically freelancers, it could be a key to bonuses. It could legitimately, your time management, if it gets out of hand, could murder your reputation.
Exactly.
Things happen and people are willing to overlook it. But if your job is to try and always be on time, and you're constantly late, you're going to hit that wall and nobody's going to want to do business with you.
You do not want your review to say, he finished the project late. It was nice, but I wish I had it sooner.
Right. But
yeah.
I lost $10,000 on a potential client because my website wasn't done. And I had a meeting with them the day before it was done. I gave myself 2 weeks, and unfortunately the website took an additional 2 weeks.
We were hoping to release the product. Yeah. That's a sad conversation and a sad review to read, honestly.
Right.
You won't go far with that type of review.
All right. So now it's going to be a fun special time for me. Tips and tricks from me, and then we're going to kick over to Jesse and let him do some. So here's my tips and tricks here. Okay, I spent time working for a printing company. It was pretty much like freelancing, right? Except for the fact we didn't have to do any marketing, really. That was just already done by somebody else. We got people walking through the door with short-term projects day in and day out. And, our job was to pound through them as rapidly as possible, maintaining high level of quality. And the nice thing was that we were setting the deadlines, right? We were giving the expectations to the customer. Sometimes we had rush jobs, but 90% of the time I was able to look at a customer and go, hey, guess what? It's going to take 6 days. I got to order the clothes or whatever, I'm printing on. I've got to do the printing. I've got to package it. I've got to QA it, and then you can have it. I learned a ton in the short time that I worked in that environment. In a different world, I'd still likely be there. To be honest, take note, if you're a business owner, stay sober during work hours, you might lose good people. Just saying. All right, on to those tips. Take your time when you're qualifying customers. And what qualifying means is getting the details out of them. You need to have as much detail so that you know what you need to do so you can execute it. If you don't take your time qualifying customers, what you're going to end up doing is coming off half-cocked and you have to start over again. You don't want to spend, 40 hours working on a project only to spend an additional 40 hours for free, exceeding the time limit that they've set on you. Because then again, we already talked about it. Time management is not your friend. You need to make sure that you're good with it. Otherwise, you're going to end up hitting the wall. Focus on local community groups. I said this earlier, but I feel like it's really important, right? And I want to touch on it one more time. I'm an old school sales guy. I've worked for old school sales guys for years. And one of the best things that I can do, even if it's in a mask, is to have a conversation with somebody in person or face to face. And the reason for that is that if they already know that they're having issues with their website or with the product that you're going to be working on, they're going to feel like they have an ally. You came in and you're their hero because you're going to save the day and you're going to make it better. Doing that in person is more of an emotional thing than if you're doing it over the phone or in Zoom. It's also easier to get to people, right? So that's why I aim to do that. 99% of the time, it's going to be business stuff. We're their construction workers and architects for the web. That's what we're doing. We're the people to translate their wants and needs into a format that others can see online. All right, number 3, use a time tracking application. This is for billing, and this is so that you know that you are on the right path when you're giving time estimates. If you're doing for example, a WordPress project, just spinning it up and tossing a theme on it, and it takes you 20 minutes, you're going to know it takes you 20 minutes. Your customer should too. Bill them an hour, call it a day. Something like Walk of Time is great. It plugs straight into your IDE. I personally also use an additional time clock called clockify.me. Again, it's free. This shows that you're counting and valuing their time investment in you, and you're giving proof that you're actually working on the product outside of just proof. Stupid Alexa yelling at me as usual. See here. Yeah, don't scam people. I mean, to be honest with you, if it's under an hour, like for example, if my job is just literally spin up a free WordPress for them to play with and toss a theme on them, and it takes me 20 minutes to do it, I'm going to charge them for 30 minutes and I'm going to move on. I just made more money than they wanted to put out anyway, and they're doing all the work. If it's over 45 minutes, I'll round it up to an hour, but under 45, usually I'll just kind of round to that 30-minute mark and keep going from there. Some people might prefer just to have a minimum of an hour or 2 hours. As long as you're upfront about it, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, and that leads straight into number 4. And I'm gonna get a little frisky with this one, okay? Be honest, for the love of God, just be honest. Always be honest. Integrity is such a huge part of business, especially if you want to be successful. If you lie to a single customer about your skills, your ability to get their job done on a certain time frame, you're going to get a bad rap. You get a bad rap, especially if you're working in a smaller city and that's your only sales channel. You're not going to have a job. You're not going to make money. You're not going to feed yourself, your family, your friends, whoever you're trying to feed, right? There is an old school sales mindset that everybody should just understand. One person giving you a bad review equates to you losing 10 people. 5 people giving you a positive review means that you get 1. Okay. I don't know about anybody else, but if it's free for me not to lie to somebody and I'm going to gain a customer every 5 people, every 10 people, I'm just not going to lie, and I'm going to do good work, because at that point I'm getting free customers that I'm not paying for with advertising, etc. So, just be honest. All right, Jesse, let's hear it. What are those tips, my man?
That honesty one hit home. I mean, whatever happened to just being a decent human being,
That's in there too.
I mean, that should just be a thing. If you're gonna do business, especially as a sole proprietor, as a freelancer, be a decent human being. These business owners, they have so many things on their plate. They have families to feed. The last thing they want to worry about is paying you a good chunk of money just for you to flop on them, to run with their money.
And they just went through COVID and probably lost tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So, and that shouldn't even have to be a thing. It's, if you're gonna provide a good or service, provide that good or service, and try. I'm not saying you have to give a little bit more, but it will show in your work. You know, when you were talking about qualifying, that it's really good to understand what people's needs are and being able to translate them, but also, they're trusting you as a consultative resource. They may, like I said in one of the examples, they may want the website to do backflips, and that might not actually work for business. You as a web developer should know what actually works, what gets clicks. So just because, a dog walker says, I want my website to show a dog pissing on the website, I'm gonna look them dead in the face and I'll be like, so what value does this have to your website?
Tell it to call Calvin and Hobbes. Just saying.
For some people it works, but I'm gonna tell you, hey, in all my years of doing web design and studying the web, using the web, do you want your website to function and bring in customers like Amazon? Or do you want it to be in the backlinks right next to like MySpace and in the
Oof.
shelf-grown cobwebs, you know? So you are the expert. Just because they're the business owner, you are the expert. Go in with confidence when you're doing your proposals. That is part of knowing your craft, you know? Uh, be the expert because 90% of closing the sale is being able to just walk in with your brass balls basically, and tell them, hey, I'm a developer, I'm an engineer for the web, and if you want your site to be successful, you should listen to me.
Well, and just to put it out there, there's no question in my mind. When you're doing sales calls, you're looking at a 20 to 30% close rate. So every 100 people you talk to,
If you're good.
right, if you're good, like top tier good, you're looking at 20 to 30% close rate more often than not. And part of the reason you see such high turnover, especially in like new car stores, like your branded Honda stores or Toyota or Subaru, what have you, that's because they'll hire 40 people and only 5 of them will be there in 2 months. So understand, when you walk through that door, you're not walking through a door, you're hitting a wall. Hope to God
They're
that
qualifying you.
right. Their side, your body language, the way that you're talking. I mean, if you haven't looked it up, I think I said it the other day, dude, look up songs, music, dance. It is a body language and communication theory. Look it up, understand it, and enact it. Because at the end of the day, if you walk in, and mind you, I'm 6'3", 270 pounds. I'm not small. And I tend to come off a bit intense and a bit intimidating just because I guess I just come off that way. It's unfortunate, but that's the way I come off occasionally. I've walked in the door when I was doing Sprint B2B and I had people look at me dead in the face and say, no, get the hell out. We don't even want to hear you pitch. There's the door. Don't let it hit you in the ass on the way out the door. Go. So understand, it's not easy. You're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to get turned down. Unfortunately, for a lot of people in the software engineering world, guess what? That's what we deal with when we apply for jobs. That's what we deal with when we try and get leads freelancing. That's part of how it works. And I'll tell you a secret. It's not just software engineering. It is every single industry, unless you're looking at entry level jobs. And there are some of those that are even more harsh. So keep your chin up, take a deep breath. Every time somebody says no, just put a notch in your little notebook, walk down to the next business and start over again. Put a smile on your face and make it work.
The sale starts at no.
Right.
For me, like, I love trying to just overcome objectives, that mind work, because that's what helps you with the next sale.
Right.
The reason why they don't want to work with you is the reason why you should work even harder.
Yeah.
And that's how you get to that 30, 40% close rate.
I think my favorite sale of all time when I was selling cell phones, this was, God, this has been a few years. I was working as a multi-channel or multi company vendor inside of another business, and I had a kid come in and he had an iPhone 5. And this is after the iPhone 10 came out. Like
We were up there.
I think we were already pushing out the XRs and the XS. And a kid comes in with an iPhone 5. This thing is beaten to hell. The entire back is shattered. The camera is literally missing.
On
And
its last leg.
I looked at him dead in the face. It's like, bro, why the hell are you torturing yourself? You know you're carrying around a pile of crap. Stop doing it. Take the time, spend the money, and let's get you into something that you don't have to worry every single morning as you take it off the charger if it's going to collapse into a pile of dust and glass shards.
Hey, I mean, customers could use those to shave their face, when they're out of razors.
And mind you, at that moment, I was a sales manager and I had 3 guys that I had just been spending the last 3 hours role playing with and training. And they looked at me like I lost my mind. You're insulting this guy. You're insulting his phone. These were the things I heard as soon as I closed the sale, got the kid out of the store. And I looked at him, it's like, you know what? Sometimes you got to be honest, man. If it's a pig, it's a pig. Don't try and put lipstick on a pig just to hope that it's going to last another week. Be straight. There's a historic company in my hometown, and I've harassed Jesse about doing their site for free just because of how terrible this is. And this is a business that was established in early 1900s. Like I want to say 1900 or 1901.
Gold rush.
And it's trashed. Like it's rough. I have a huge amount of respect for the people that are there because this is a hardware store that literally has a Home Depot a mile and a half down the road. That takes some work. So don't be scared to be straight up with people. The worst they can do is tell you no.
Yeah.
Jesse, you got any tips for us?
If you're gonna do this by yourself, you're gonna want to be a project manager. And what I mean by that is you should be familiar with some basic tools, like if it's not Trello or Jira, have a notebook, like a checklist, Kyle's a Notion.
I actually just added to that arsenal today. Went and picked this guy up.
Oh, I love those things.
Dude, those things are rad. Cool.
Yeah. So either way, you should be tracking something, whether you're writing, and this goes with writing your logs. I have with Bonsai, you're able to actually click start timer, and you can use that for billing. It's kind of like an hour clock thing. But
it's your time clock.
Yeah, it's your time clock, But if you don't know how much time it takes you to do anything, figure that out first. I think before you even start freelancing, like you should know your craft well enough to be like, hey, I know it'll take me about a week to come up with this. I know it'll take me 2 weeks to do a design or to develop something. If I don't know something, I need to give myself time to research, and with the next project, it'll get easier. But if you're not project managing it, you're gonna run into this trap where as soon as you start a project, you're gonna work the project and then you're gonna go back out to prospecting. The problem with this is as soon as your project is over, you're back to prospecting. There is no money coming in. And that's part of the time management stuff. You should have hours set for coding, designing, actually doing projects, and hours set aside for prospecting. Whether it's going on the phone, going to businesses, and now COVID is starting to get a little bit easier where we can do this. So there's no excuse for you not going to your local family restaurant and saying, hey, I love the food here, but I'd love to tell you about your website. It's trash, and or show them like, hey, I had a really hard time pulling up the menu. Like, I think I can do some good here. Let me show you what I could do and let's get this going.
Well, I'm gonna jump in and say one thing there. Web design and actually being, a web designer and doing freelancing, it doesn't have to be the whole site.
Oh yeah, no.
If you've got a company that has a menu that's just ragged, dude, offer to build it out for them. I don't care if you're spinning up a React app. I don't care if you're doing a HTML, CSS. I don't care if you're just doing a better page in WordPress. If it's one page, it's one page. If that's an hour or 2 hours of your hourly fee, you've made an hour or 2 hours worth of money. And
Not only
guess
that,
what?
it's already done. You could give it to them right then and there.
Right. And the other
Drop the
piece of
paperwork.
that is that now you have a friend. Now you've made money, and now you can say, I helped on this website. I helped this company. You don't have to say you did the whole thing. Be honest. Integrity is a thing. Remember that. But you can do piecemeal work as well as full projects.
Worst case scenario, you have a portfolio project.
Right. Sorry. Keep going.
No. I mean, that's pretty much it. You got to be organized. You have to be honest. At the end of the day, be confident, because the freelancing is 80% sales. If you can't talk to people, you can't close deals, you won't have work. And if you just rely on Upwork, you're just going to get beat out by
Right.
pretty much anybody else that's willing to work pennies on the dollar. So that's all I have for that. Be competitive.
All right. That brings us to our next topic. And I actually got a question about this today, but I would be neglecting having Jesse on the show if I didn't say something. What about New Evolution Digital, or New Evo Digital, as we like to call it?
Ned?
It's Ned. I love that.
Partner Ned.
New Evolution Digital is in process. When you are focusing on doing things from a sales angle, you want to make the point that there are better ways to structure and build things out to get better responses from potential customers. It takes time to tune things and make sure that those folks who visit your site get the full effect of what you're trying to do. We will be operating in a similar way to companies that do sales, and will be doing things a bit more the old school way, but mixing in new school social media marketing and other aspects to get people through the door. But our target demographic is going to be a bit more old school. So we're going to be targeting them. And we'll get a kick out of getting in-person consulting. When the site's up, we'll be sharing it. That I'm going to brag about it. I got to be real. And I definitely will continue talking about it. And like I said at the intro, we're definitely going to show it off. Maybe I will learn not to do such wordy, paragraphs to read, because dear God, I'm sitting over here stumbling over my own words.
Water.
Right. But no, so it's our sales style. And we're not going to go into specifically what our strategy is. I'm kind of greedy like that. But I'll say that, if you
for us to
listen
do
to
and you to find out.
Right, we want to make lots of money. That's what we want to do.
But we want to service a lot of people too.
Right.
The purpose of New Evolution Digital is to be a force to reckon with in these small businesses, in these towns, and to get to big businesses too. We don't discriminate. So
Right.
Business is business, and we want to help. We're in this new day where the web is totally different than what it was 20 years ago. We're not building 4chan. We're not building early stages of Twitter.
When you were like 6.
So I know about it.
I lived the Wild West. Thank you.
What I'm trying to get across is that times are different, and now you have to adapt.
Right. Well, and I'll say this too, just because I'm not going to lay out exactly what our business model is, if you listen to the podcast, you're getting my perspective. You're getting my takes on things. You're getting pieces of my strategies on things. I started this podcast earlier this year, not just to, I'm not looking to get rich and famous. I started it with a very specific purpose. I want to teach people. I want to get them from A to Z in the easiest straight line path that I can. I think that there is value to being able to learn specific industries outside of universities. And I think that software engineering is one that really, we need to be our own university. I think it takes a lot more grit and a lot more willpower to learn how to be a software engineer outside of a school and on your own. And that's coming from somebody who's been in college and who's been through a boot camp. Let me tell you, it is harder when I started trying to learn web development outside of those. And that was after
Udemy.
I have probably $300-400 in Udemy, and those are on sale. Not to mention the fact that, the countless hours that I've spent on Medium, the countless hours I've spent on YouTube, and the fact that I have YouTube Premium just because, dear God, the ads get ridiculous after 6 hours. Not
Watching
to
those 6 hour courses over there.
right. But I mean, the reality is there's so many different ways to gain the same information, unless it's Shopify for some reason. We're not going to go into that though. I am a huge fan. I'm going to back up and I'm just going to say this right. I'm a big fan of college. I think the college experience, if you're coming out of high school and you have the ability to dive into college, it's going to be fun. You're going to have adventures. You're going to live a life. It's going to be fun. If you're unable to get into college, go pick up your job that you got to pick up to survive if you've got to. And every single night when you get home, instead of flicking on the, PS5 and the Xbox, sit your butt down in front of a computer and learn your craft. If you want to better yourself, you have the choice to do it.
You have to put in the hours.
Right. I'm not going to lie. I have thousands of hours into video games over the years. I'm 33 years old. I have played tens, if not hundreds of thousands of hours playing video games. I've done, local tournaments, stuff like that. I was obsessed for a very long time, but I'll tell you, there was one day I looked in the mirror and I went, you know what? I'm done with this shit. Like I can't sit in front of a screen and not be productive.
And then Twitch became a thing. And now you get paid for video gaming.
Happened after that revelation, unfortunately. But I'll tell you, last year I ran into a brick wall, in my personal life. I'm not going to go into details. It's not anybody's business, but I hit a brick wall around May. And June and July, I sat on unemployment like a lot of people did, binge watching Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, playing video games. I think that I had 1,000 hours logged in, very short amount of time. But, the end of July, things really, really clicked. I don't make it a secret that I have a family. And, I had another one of those oh shit moments where I looked in the mirror and I just didn't like who I was. I was tired. I was haggard. I was frustrated. I was stressed to the max about what I was going to do after I got off unemployment. And the reality was that I realized it was time for a change. And the change I chose was to dive into a hobby that I had been toying with since 2006. And, I've made websites, most of them are already taken down, but, I've done the freelancing thing, HTML, CSS, Bootstrap. I just never dove into the JavaScript side of things. And so very quickly, I made the choice of, I'm going to learn a programming language. I'm going to change my life. And I'm going to use this period of time where the entire world is imploding as the time to make that happen. Because at the end of the day, the people that are important to me need to be fed. They need to be clothed. They need to feel like they're, being taken care of. And, that's me, man. When it comes to my family, I'll jump off a cliff. I don't even care. So there's right.
Yeah.
So, you have anything else, Jesse?
I think you covered it all. That's freelancing for me.
I definitely had to put that rant in. All right, folks, that is it. I'm stoked to have Jesse on the show. You're going to hear him more often. Occasionally, I'm going to harass him until he gets host just because I can. Plus it's nice to have a different perspective on here. Make sure you hammer those like buttons, those subscribe buttons, those follow buttons. Make sure that you're on YouTube. Smack the bell to get the notifications because that's the thing. Remember to share the show with your friends. Help us grow a community. And let's grow this community into the best software engineering podcast on the internet. I know it's going to be hard because we're fighting up against people like Wes Boss and Scott.
Oh, those guys are great.
Oh man, it's
Their
actually great.
podcast.
They're great. But I'm competitive. I want to beat them. Much love out to them. Special thanks to Jesse. And guys, see you next week, man.